I've been using the Orbit B-Hyve 12-zone smart Wi-Fi sprinkler controller for the past couple weeks, and I have to say this thing is not ready for prime time quite yet. I'm going to do a lot of hedging in this review. I'm going to say, I think they might be able to do it eventually, and that they'll probably get it together, and you know, this will be a good sprinkler controller. But as of this date, as of the release of this video, April 18th, 2016, it's not a good sprinkler controller. It's buggy, it's funky. The app doesn't quite work. So take that or leave it. I'm going to give you the details on what happened when I used it and my frustrations. And there's still a lot of different things to like about this thing, but it's kind of a deal breaker right now. I can't suggest it as something that you would buy. So, some pros about the Orbit B-Hyve. It's the cheapest controller on the market for a 12-zone smart Wi-Fi sprinkler controller. It's in a weatherproof enclosure, which is great for a lot of people. Most of these other smart controllers don't have a weatherproof enclosure. You have to buy one, or they just don't support it at all. It's made in the USA with global materials. It has really nice manual controls right on the front of the controller. And the app, when it works, is really neat. It's got some really beautiful visualizations on it. Some of the cons right off the bat is that it's currently not EPA WaterSense certified. Supposedly Orbit's going through that process right now. The web controls are a little funky right now. I had problems even getting to the website when I first tried it. Now it's live, but it's still kind of not working for me. And there's no if this, then that integration or public API for the geeks among us. And of course, my main con to the sprinkler controller, smart watering is buggy, and I really couldn't get it to work the way I wanted it to work. So if this thing gets EPA WaterSense certified, it's going to be a hell of a deal, because it's already hovering around that $120 mark on Amazon right now. It's a 12-zone controller, and then certain water companies will give up to 100% of the cost of a sprinkler controller if it meets guidelines. So you could get this thing for free potentially, or 50% of it, which is what my water company does. So you get $60, and then the controller only costs $60. So that's a great deal as well. But like I said, it's not officially EPA WaterSense certified yet, so a lot of that hinges on that coming through. I like the hardware of the B-Hyve. It's really well built. That outdoor enclosure is nice. It's got a lock on it. It kind of flips open with the manual controls on there. It's a nice piece of plastic. So I'm not going to go into the 12-minute setup and install video. If you're really interested in all the ins and outs of setting it up and getting it installed, just click up here and watch that video, and you can see kind of the more detailed trials and tribulations I had when I was setting up the smart controller. My first fail was when I was just going through the wizard to set up the controller. It paired easily. I was able to get on its Wi-Fi, set up, get it attached to my Wi-Fi, all those little hoops that you have to jump through for every controller. But then when I did the automated wizard to say, okay, go through my zones, see what zones I have. Test zone 1, test zone 2. Nothing happened. So I had to manually set up the zones. No big deal. It was just kind of the first strike of the app. And eventually I went through and I found, I was kind of confused at how smart watering actually worked. I was editing my zones. I was doing a manual program. I'm like, I don't want to do a manual program. I want smart watering. The other smart sprinkler controllers come up with a watering schedule based on certain inputs that you give it. So eventually I was able to find that in the app and get it going. But once I set it up, it didn't say when it was going to happen or what was going to happen. So I kind of went to bed thinking that it was bugged out and nothing was going to happen. But then I woke up the next morning and my water pressure was low, and I was like, oh, I think it must be watering right now. So I looked out front and it was watering. So I checked the app and it said smart watering has begun. So I was like, oh, sweet. Okay, we've got smart watering going. But I just watered yesterday, so let's just skip through this and put it off until the next cycle or whatever. So then the next day I'm at work and I check the app and it says it's watering, but the app's all buggy and it doesn't really say how much time is left. So I'm almost like, ew. I check it like 4 hours later. I'm like, is this thing still watering my front yard even though I'm at work and I can't really control it or turn it off or see what it's doing? So that was funky. I let that cycle go through, and I guess it kind of worked out. It didn't water the next day, so that's a Tuesday, which I was like, okay, cool. But on the app, it said no watering scheduled for 30 days. No smart watering scheduled for the next 30 days. So I was like, okay, cool. So it's kind of filled up the lawn and the flowers. They're all good for 30 days. But then Wednesday, it's watering again. And I'm like, okay, I'll let it go through the cycle. I'll see what happens. But the water was running off my front lawn, so I was like, I let the first cycle through, but then it was starting a second cycle. So I was like, okay, let's just stop this. Gotta stop it. Can't be letting water just run down the street. So that was my experience for the first 4 days of it just kind of being funky and didn't know what was going to happen, didn't know when it was going to happen. I ended up contacting Orbit support, went back and forth. They said, do that double click on the home button and close the app thing. I did that, came back into the app, and it was working right. And when the app works right, it's really nice. It's cool to see this, the clock face type timer ticking down of how much is left in your zones, and if you take a nice picture of your zone, it's neat to see that representation. So smart watering has been on over the past couple weeks, and it's just always a mystery of like when it's going to pop up. I talked to one of the guys at Orbit, and he said that there will be in the next app update, the last time you smart watered on the calendar, and the next time it will smart water on the calendar. So just right now, the app is just not ready. It's just kind of funky. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know why it's happening. It's kind of leaves you in the dark, and you kind of just have to give it faith. And I'm not one to really give it faith right now when there's other products on the market that get the job done and tell you exactly what's happening, what did happen, and why things are going to happen. And like I said about hedging earlier in the video, the Rain Machine and the Ratio are my two favorite controllers. They really blew me away with their usability and the app and all the bells and whistles. I love them. But I came to them and checked them out only over the past couple months. And both of those units have been out for right around 2 years, I'd say. And if you go back to the early Amazon reviews of both of them, they get the shit beat out of them. There's tons of negative reviews at the start saying, oh, it doesn't work, oh, it sucks, and this is horrible. So I didn't actually get to personally experience all the rough go of Ratio and Rain Machine. I got it when it was a nice, mature product that was fully formed and really satisfied my every need. So that's why I'm giving the Orbit the benefit of the doubt that eventually the B-Hyve will get up to speed. I'm sure there's a team working on this stuff all the time and getting user feedback. And the thing is, this thing's going to be at Home Depot. It's going to be at Lowe's. It's going to be the #1 smart sprinkler controller, I suppose. I mean, if it really falls apart and everyone has the same kind of problems I have with the app, then it won't be. But if they do get this thing together, it's going to dwarf Ratio and Rain Machine. It's set in stone almost because it has such a powerful distribution network and it has such a cheap price. So this thing's going to take off if they can get it right. So we'll see if they get it right. I'll be coming back. I'll make sure to kind of write updates on my blog, thewifigarden.com, or even shoot another video eventually if I feel like it needs to be reviewed again, if everything's kind of been worked out, and give you guys a lowdown on how I feel. But as of today, it didn't sell me on it. Kind of disappointed in it and ready to go and test some other sprinkler controllers.